Hey, what's up, everybody? Catechism Question 18 is what we're dealing with tonight. So hopefully you found it on your app. This is a good one to dive into. Now I'm going to let you know up front that this catechism question tonight just leaves us with a cliffhanger. Basically leaves us without a whole lot of explanation on what God has done to remedy this question and answer. And that's intentional. So just kind of a little heads up there before we get going. Question 18, will God allow our disobedience and idolatry to go unpunished? Is he going to let the disobedience of man, the idolatry of men, go unpunished? No. Every sin is against the sovereignty, holiness, and goodness of God and against his righteous law. And God is righteously angry with our sins, and will punish them in his just judgment, both in this life and in the life to come. So what he's saying is obviously no, sin is not going to go unpunished because it's against his sovereignty, it's against his holiness, it's against his goodness, sin is. And so he's going to punish that. It goes against his righteous law, so on. And then it says he's righteously angry about sin. And so I'll explain more of that in a minute. But the Lord is angry with sin. And there's a reason for that. And will punish them in his just judgment, both, and this is an important part, in this life, because there is a recompense for sin in this life, and in the life to come. And that is eternal separation with God. In a place we call hell. That is the penalty for sin, is to not be in the presence of God. So in this life, sin has a way of bringing destructive things into our lives, and in the life to come, it leads to separation from God. Now, Ephesians 5:5-6 is the text. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, who is covetous, that is an idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you, that is what Paul writes, with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. So God is going to judge idolatry. God's going to judge the sin of our heart. I want to read, and then I've got a story, and then I'll turn you loose. I want to read Charles Spurgeon's commentary on this. I'm going to read literally straight from it because I think it's really powerful. Charles Spurgeon's the prince of preachers. I mean, he's just an old, great preacher. And he says, not to punish the guilty were to exact the penalty of suffering from the innocent, to take away the suffering of the innocent. Think what an injury and injustice would be inflicted upon all the honest men in London if the thieves were never punished of their robbery. It would be making the innocent suffer if you allowed the guilty to escape. It would be making the innocent suffer if you allowed the guilty to escape. God, therefore, not out of arbitrary choice, but from the very necessity of rightness, must punish us for having done wrong. And what he says is, if you don't punish sin done, if robbery, theft, whatever, you pick the sin, if you don't punish that, you're actually hurting the innocent, because the innocent didn't do anything wrong in regard to the theft, the robbery, the murder. But if you don't punish that one who did the deed, then it's actually not rightness at all. It's actually not loving at all. So let me explain. So I've been debating on whether to share this or not. I've never shared this before in public. I'm going to share it here tonight. I think it's okay to, just because we're a smaller group. But I've never shared this before. At least I don't think I have. My sister has passed. She passed on her 21st birthday, and that's coming up on 20 years ago. She'd be 41 this year. And so anyway, when I was a child, we were on vacation back to Washington State, which is where I'm from, And my dad's parents lived in Oregon, so we were at my dad's parents' house, and I was young, and Nikki, I think I was like 8, Nikki was probably 4. It's something in that neighborhood. And anyway, I don't remember everything that happened. Matter of fact, I'm not going to be able to tell a story in grave detail just simply because I can't remember all the details. But I was asleep on the floor, and there was some commotion that night. And my uncle walked through the living room, and I don't remember everything that transpired. I just remember that there was some commotion. Mom got us up really, really early the following morning, and we left out. It feels like we left out before daylight ever came up. And we went somewhere, and anyway, we came back, and I was standing. We had a 1981 or 78 or 1978, I think, Ford Ranger pickup, which was a full-size pickup, but it was a baby blue, had a bench seat in the front, and I stood up in the front seat. That was before seat belts. We were heathens, but I stood up in the front. That's how I rode everywhere. And so anyway, I remember there being a revolver in whether it was in the glove compartment or if it was in the seat. I can't remember, but I remember my dad grabbing it, and he went into the house. And there's some commotion, a lot of different things happened, and he came back out. No gunshots, nothing like that, but there was a lot of commotion, a lot of things going on, and then Dad got mad, left, went down to the park, and my grandfather came out, and we walked down to the park, and so I didn't really understand anything that was going on. I didn't know anything that was happening, but what had happened was the night previous, my uncle had done something inappropriate to my sister, and so my dad was prepared to kill him at the end of the day. I mean, that's how mad my dad was with what happened. Now, since then, obviously Nikki's not here with us now, but anyway, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of different things about that what happened that night that played out in our family. To this day, again, Dad wrestled with that, Mom wrestles with that. It's something that you never forget. Now, So now let's take, you say, Pastor, what's this have to do with this catechism? I mean, think about it for a second. What if God said, oh well, just part of life? You know, in regards to my sister, like we go before God and God's like, oh well, just a part of life, man. That's the way it goes. And God was really indifferent. Or let's say even, take it into the natural. Let's say a judge and a jury is like, well, man, that happens. Good luck to you. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to be like, yeah, that's how God reacts to something like that. Or, yeah, that's how judge should react to something like that. No, that's not anywhere remotely close to how we feel about this situation. What we feel about a situation where a 4-year-old, this happens to a 4-year-old, is that there should be a recompense for that person. And it's a right judgment, and to not have a judgment is to make the innocent vulnerable. It's to not take up for the vulnerable, and so obviously there needs to be a recompense. Like let me take another illustration. If I'm a father and my daughter comes into me, which Abby's all in the middle of my heart right now. She just graduated high school, but if she comes in and says, this particular boy abused me last night, and I say, well, that's just how boys are. How wicked is that? Like that's not helpful. That's not loving, right? That's not loving at all. I'm going to tell you what would happen on that night. I would be at somebody's front doorstep with law enforcement, and somebody's going to jail, okay? Like that's the way. And I hope that cat don't look at me and say, oh, you're not loving. Oh, that's not very pastoral of you. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, it is. And so that's where we get to what this catechism is all about. God's going to judge sin. God is going to judge sin in this life and in the next. The recompense for our sin, for some people it's jail, for some people it's just the pain of life. on what sin brings. It's broken relationships. It's moms and daughters not talking to one another because of sin that happened. Husbands and wives getting divorced because sin happened. Losing a job because sin happened. I mean, on and on. There's recompense in this life, and then there's recompense outside this life. It's eternal separation from God. Now, I know I went hyperbolic on a molestation illustration. I know it's hyperbolic. But I think to the best that we can, we need to recognize that even our own sin in front of a righteous God is going to be punished. There is a day coming where God is going to judge the world according to his righteousness. Not our righteousness, his righteousness. So every lying tongue, every gossiping tongue, every slanderous tongue is going to be under the judgment of God. Every time we've created division in places, it's going to be under the judgment of God. And the Lord's going to righteously judge the world. And listen, that's not unloving. That's loving. You think about the people that have been sinned against. It's standing up for the people that have been sinned against. That is a loving thing to do, is to judge the world of their sin. Now, here's where the catechism ends. It just completely stops. It doesn't talk about the gospel. It doesn't talk about what Jesus has done. It doesn't talk about any of that. It just stops and on purpose leaves us sitting here in our sin. Just leaves us here. And it's intentional. I think sometimes in the church we don't value the gospel enough. And one of the reasons we don't value the gospel enough is because we really don't understand what the penalty of our sin really requires. And so this is how we're going to leave it tonight. We're just going to stop. There's the deal. The sin you've committed, God's going to punish it. And that's it. In this life and in the life to come. Your leaders have some really good questions, and you guys are going to have some really good conversation. And I love you. And do you see how hard it is to even stop this tonight without talking about help and our need for help? It's difficult. So I love you. See you soon, and have a great discussion tonight. God bless you.